Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Every day we rise is a great day to be alive, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks morning show. I'm Slim Overton, and here with host and moderator of our Monday morning shows, Thomas the Colonel Chapman, and a special guest, Mayor Shannon Glover. Both are veterans as we celebrate Veterans Day. Contacted quite a few other veterans that were regulars on our show, but everybody is busy. But we do have two veterans here, and the mayor has graciously agreed to be with us for a little while. He has a busy schedule today, so we're glad to have him here with us this morning. And just before you take over, Colonel, I'll play this message from Major Medina.
On this Veterans Day, we come together as a grateful community to honor the brave men and women who have answered the call to serve our great nation. Our veterans are the bedrock of our freedom. And today, we express our deepest gratitude for their courage, their dedication, and their selfless sacrifices. To all those who've worn the uniform, who left behind families and the comforts of home to protect our way of life, we say thank you. You are the guardians of our liberties, the defenders of our republic, and the reason we wake up each day knowing our freedom is secure. We recognize that many of our veterans bear scars, both visible and unseen, from their time in service. Thank you for the sacrifices you and your family have endured in serving our nation. Let us never forget the depth of your commitment. To our veterans, on behalf of the city of Palm Bay, I salute you. We thank you, not just today, but every single day. You are the hero, our inspiration, and the reason our nation remains strong and free. May we honor your service by living up to the values you have fought to protect. Happy Veterans Day. Hoorah!
And I'd like to mention that I didn't serve, but my father served in the U.S. Navy, Mayor, and he was on the shore patrol. And I guess you say shore patrol duty, but the duty he had was back there in the 50s on Church Street. So that was more like a war zone back there, with all the bars and everything lined up against on Church Street. So he served there. So and Colonel, he used his after he served, he used his GI Bill to go to law school. So the service he served and the service served him. So all right, Colonel, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I am so privileged to be here today. As my cousin Slim says, yes, I am a veteran. I served 36 years in the United States Army, and started as a private and ended up as a colonel. And I say ended up as a colonel because I always said that it's not a title or a rank that I wanted to achieve or sought to achieve. Because the day I was picked up for colonel, I called my wife. I was sitting in a meeting with the Army Surgeon General, and the commander leaned on me, and I was saying, well, I told him, says, I know the list came out, so I know, we don't get picked up, as far as minorities and black males don't get picked up, because before me there would only been 5 African-American male nurses in the Army Nurse Corps. And I think it was like 115 years. And he told me, he says, you know what, Tom, I don't have to talk to you today as far as giving you counsel and letting you know the bad news. You got picked up for 06. So I immediately left the meeting and called my wife at work and told her, you know what? The Army has a sense of humor. They don't know what they have done. They actually selected me for 06. And then so from there, so I was the sixth after, the next of it, hopefully in a long line of African-American males that male nurses to make 06. So been happy and fulfilled my career as an 06 and been trying to do the work even after I retire, especially on this show. But I also, like Slim says, like to call out, we come from a family. My dad served 20 years in the Navy. My grandfather did 20 plus years in the Navy. I got my middle daughter. She was a major in the Army Nurse Corps, stationed in Hawaii now. Just got her doctorate from the Army. Sherry is my oldest daughter. She did her time. She's a veteran. And talking about benefits, they put her through pharmacy school. And my wife actually did her time in the reserves, and the Army put her through as an OB/GYN nurse practitioner. So the educational route, there's a benefits of serving that I wish more kids would do this. And then but I will turn that whole spotlight on to my other brother in arms, who is a Navy retiree, the mayor-elect, Shane Glover. All yours.
Colonel, wow. First of all, thank you for your service. And to all the veterans out there, particularly in the city of Portsmouth, throughout our Commonwealth and the nation, we would not be the country that we are without the service of our veterans. I served, of course, in the United States Navy. My father-in-law served in the world's finest Army, and so did our son serve in the United States Army. So I am most proud of the legacy of service to our country. As you know, Colonel, it dates back to first when we came here in the fight for independence. African Americans have served our country honorably and with a high degree of involvement. So it makes me proud today, every Veterans Day, to recognize that fact, because we would not be the country that we are if those individuals didn't get an opportunity to serve.
Yeah, like they say, any house is built with a strong foundation. And those veterans that came before us, some of them have fought and died and sacrificed their lives in the cause of freedom, is what makes the foundation strong, so we built this house, what I call the House of America. It's built on a strong foundation. But I will say, as last Tuesday, we did exercise one of the constitutional rights that made this country free and strong, that we had elections all up and down the ballot. And for some, I would say that the election did not go as planned for all candidates. But I'm 69 years old now. I think that the fight for freedom continues on, and some of our constitutional rights that have been taken away slowly, and especially we'll see in the next 4 years with the new president, how many of those rights are going to be taken away. Especially, I see the capitulations of billionaires are scared of this guy and the First Amendment rights. And I think this country is going to be changed forever. And we got to tow it out and, tie down the sails, and so we can survive these next 4 years. Because I'm really afraid of the next 4 years and on, personally, of what's coming for especially people of color. And so I just had to put that commentary out there, because I would never dream that having gone to war and done operations other than peacetime, that we had really had an enemy within to take over this country. And we've turned it over. I hate to say the white nationalists are running this, will be running this country. I'll go on from there. I just got to get off this. And so what say you, Shannon? You can get to a lighter piece.
Well, look, at the end of the day, for me, when I look at the whole big picture at the national level, we had the outcome that we had. At the local level, of course, I'm grateful to the citizens of Portsmouth who saw the value in my leadership to reelect me for 4 more years. I'll speak real quickly to nationally. I had a good conversation with one of my peer mayors here across the water. We have to remain vigilant in the local markets and in the state markets on protecting what we have. And we've got to challenge the national leadership to support us in those efforts. And I think what you're going to see is just that. We are not going to take anything for granted as it relates to our local rights, opportunities, and privileges. We fought too hard. And at the end of the day, we understand what the assignment is, and we are going to keep our eyes on the prize. If there's an opportunity where we need to come together, which I believe we do, we need to do that. But we need to stop looking at outside factors for our success. We need to work with one another and come together on those major issues that impact not only us as minorities, but our communities specifically. And so I'm prepared, man. One thing about me, I'm not going to sit back and accept defeat in any way. Our community is worth saving, I always say, and we are going to do just that. So stay tuned. We'll be going to the state level, to the federal level. I serve on a number of national organizations, and I plan on being not only vocal, but visible and working with like-minded people to ensure we lose no ground in this transition.
Good point, because I think that we have to be I plan on being the part of the opposition party, loyal opposition, because we have to. If people think they're going to take my rights away, then I have to oppose that, and that's why I will speak out regardless of what, and also donate monies or whatever I can do in time to keep our freedoms here. But we're talking about local elections, and so I see that there is going to be some change on the city council coming up, and then which is going to affect you as mayor and those major issues that you just talked about. And so, what are the major issues that you see coming up in your next term, and how best can you champion in and incorporate the new city council and the new makeup going forward?
Well, Colonel, I really appreciate that question. And I've already given it some thought. The main thing that I want to make sure that we get together as a council, and in getting together, unlike previous situations, we need to come away with one vision and one voice. And in the past, we haven't done that because the people elected us to get stuff done. So when you talk about that, the first thing that I intend to do, and I've already been in contact with the newly elected individuals, that we are going to come together, and I'm going to lead that effort. But more importantly, we are going to work as a team. We are going to task each other with assignments, and there's going to be more individual accountability. So that we will understand that it's not just the mayor's role, it's not just the council's role, but it's the community's role to help us to succeed. We've got some major opportunities in terms of development, economic development, land development, changing the landscape of Portsmouth, creating more opportunity and income for our city, providing more equity, right? And training our young people, giving them real hope in the sense of workforce development and training. We have a lot of work to do in terms of making our community more safe. So these are real issues that we are going to have to deal with, but I'm excited. I remain optimistic that everything that we have, the tools, the abilities, and the desire. But as I said to the group the other night at my victory party, if you look around the room, there's no more blaming me or you or the apple tree for what's not going right. You
Mhm.
need to look in the mirror at yourself and determine how can I impact my city and move it in a more positive direction. If that's at the civic league level, if that's at whatever level, serving on a board of commission, a city that is strong has its people engaged and involved. And so I challenge everybody in the city of Portsmouth. The grievance group will always be there. There'll always be that group that comes with a complaint. What are you doing to provide solutions and make our city better? And if you're not doing that, you're probably not going to be a part of the future.
Yes. You know, hit a key word when you say a grievance group, and I like to label folks, and some people will always complain, but never come up with a solution or even a plan. And they'll grieve and then try to stick it on somebody else. And that's how they put it in their corner. That's their corner of the market. But I think that ways to solve a lot of this city part is through growth and economic development. Because if you have the free flowing of economic opportunity out there through the schools and, you know, some of the programs that you've championed, so the CTE and, you know, some of the stuff, you know, through the high schools and college and through Tidewater, and then economic growth. But if you put that money into the citizens, then there's no need, then your other pieces of crime will go down, because that same element, because they were unemployed, so that's all they wanted to do is take somebody else's money. But if I have a job, per se, and I'm using this anecdotally, if I have a job, I don't need to be out there knocking somebody's head in, or on the corner slinging slinging the mess, because I have a job and I have worth and I have family and I have income, you know. And I think that will be 2 steps ahead in solving a lot of the problems in society.
Hey, Colonel, if I could add to that, I've often said the best crime reduction program for young people is a good job and training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've got to focus on. And we're already there. And I can tell you, I've been meeting with focus groups of young people and listening to them. And under the next term, we're going to create a task force with our youth. And we already have a coalition for youth here in the city of Portsmouth. But I want to see that expanded. I want to listen to our young people, and I want them to tell us what they need. And when they tell us what they need, they're going to have a role to play too. Their parents are going to have a role to play too. Just like when you and I went into the military, unfortunately, for many who don't know, the military is not a democracy. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
From the time when I got into boot camp and they woke me up at 2 a.m. in the old dark 30 in the morning, I understood that this was a different lifestyle. But it also gave me an opportunity, Colonel, just like you, to soar, to do some things that I never would have had the opportunity to do otherwise. So not bringing young people necessarily to boot camp, but creating a different expectation and a mindset that we need everybody to participate in order to get to where we desire to go.
You know,
let me Colonel, let me ask a question before the mayor has to leave. And
I'm good, Slim. I'll be around for a while. My meeting isn't until 9. So.
Oh, okay. So let me get the question in, and love the conversation about the city going forward, and definitely want to have you back to talk more about that. But I'm curious. You know, the only uniform I wore was PAC 87 and the Boy Scouts and the basketball uniform. So I was always curious about the guys, and my level of respect for the guys in the military is of the highest. And I just wanted to know, you know, I think Colonel, you went in during the late 70s, and Mayor, I think you were you 80s or 90s?
I was late 80s, early 90s. I was in during the Gulf War.
Yeah, so a lot going on there. What were some of the challenges? And you kind of hit on it a little bit, Mayor, talking about getting all of a sudden have to wake up 5 a.m, get out and run. What were some of the other challenges that you all might have faced, especially you, Colonel, during the 70s? You know, compared to someone that might be going in now? It's got to be a lot different. But as Black men going into the military back during the 70s and 80s, what were some of the most significant challenges you all faced?
Well, Colonel, why don't you take that first?
I think that, and I'll state this from when I came back. So I started as on my enlisted side. They gave me a big, broad breadth of the leadership piece that I use later on after I got out, and then went to Norfolk State, got my associate degree in nursing, and then went to Hampton, joined the reserves, finished Hampton's baccalaureate program, and went back into service and served another 30 years. But I think the institutional racism that we don't want to talk about was a big thing, because I had you go in, and I still, when I talk to young folks, I always say, as a minority, your paper has to be twice as good. If the requirements are, and I'm saying this is, from all these years of me being on the front lines, is saying you have to get a master's. For your compadres have to, or contemporaries or colleagues that don't look like you, have to get a master's. Then you have to get at least 2 masters, which I did. If I know that I outperformed my colleagues that didn't look like me, but I know my officer record or officer evaluations and or report cards was not as stellar as my colleagues. And I understood, and there's no need moping around or doing this, doing that, saying, or giving up and basically saying, to hell with it and get out. You just charge on and try to do what you can, and keep just trucking forward. I also say that and as I got up in the senior ranks, I always told the general officers that I work for, don't ask me a question that you don't want to hear, because I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm not going to play politics. I'm going to tell you the truth, what's best for the organization. And the other thing too is, I don't work for you directly, even though you're my senior rater or whatever, because first I work for my family. Then I also work for the people that work for or work with me, not for me. And then the third down is I work for the patients and beneficiaries that we take care of every day. Then you as a command group are fourth in line. And that's my criteria of how I answer those questions. And then the last piece is, I've had a great relationship with all my assignment managers, because I've always asked for the hardest and most toughest assignment and try to do the best I can and excel in those assignments. Take the assignments that others don't want to do. No need to shun. A lot of folks will shun, take a easy assignment because they want to have some lifestyle or whatever. I say, take those hard assignments, because it builds depth and breadth of career experience. And it gives you a piece of satisfaction when you accomplish what I call sometimes the impossible. Some of the assignments I've had that had worldwide impact, that some I can talk about, some I can't, but always take the toughest assignments and do well at them, and also grab all the educational types opportunities that are out there. And it's going to take time away from the family sometimes, or most times, but you have to have a talk with your spouse and say, okay, the goal is I need to get my paper right. And so I have to go to school or whatever during the nighttime when I'm working full time. But it's going to pay off in the long run. And to me, it's paid off in the long run. What say you?
Look, I'm partly historian here. So when I look at the history of the military, all the services,
Hmm.
um, I was listening to you, but I thought about, for example, during the Civil War, um, Frederick Douglass was asking Lincoln to give black men an opportunity to fight for their right. And there was always in the backdrop of that, well, black men, they're fearful, they're not courageous, which is
Hmm.
the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Because if you look at it historically, in all the wars, we have been courageous, from the Buffalo Soldiers all the way up. The bottom line is this: the military still is the only place in America, I think, out of our institutions, and the Army was indicative of that. I know
Hmm.
that they had the better record of promoting minorities than any other service when I was in.
Hmm.
And I think the realities are, we're going to have to work harder. We're going to have to put ourselves forward, because there's a mentality and a mindset there that would even say that we're less than on the battlefield, for example.
Hmm.
The reality is, look at the history of our performance in every situation. I would argue that if it were not for African Americans coming into the Civil War on the side of the Union, our lives could be markedly different.
Yes, yes.
And the battles that were fought at the end of the Civil War were decisive. In fact, when Grant took Richmond, it was partly due to courageous efforts of the African American Union soldiers that came online. So that's the way I look at it. I always look at the upside in terms of the opportunity. The military gave me an opportunity to rise, gave me an opportunity to get an education. I met my wife through the military. It gave me a lot of things. What are the challenges? You better believe it. Do you have to overcome obstacles? I think that's going to always be apparent because of the structure. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, to Colonel's point, we've got to maximize the opportunity and challenge those myths and those inaccuracies when they rear their head.
Hmm.
And I would recommend that in any situation. But I think the military, particularly the benefits that you get today, um, are amazing in terms of the retirement that you can obtain, the student support in terms of going back to school. You can even transfer those dollars, if you don't use the GI Bill, to your dependents. That
Hmm.
is huge. That was not available when I was in the military. So there's some upside. A lot of good things can happen, but at the end of the day, you're still going to at some point have to challenge institutions, because people are there. And when people are part of institutions, they bring their biases, their prejudices, and everything. And we got to always be vigilant and challenge that.
But you know what? And other benefits too. And a lot of folks will say, well, I don't want to leave my girlfriend, or I don't want to leave, say, the city of Portsmouth. And that's why reason, or I don't want to listen to the man. Well, to answer that, you will always have a boss, either in the job or at home. You got a boss.
That's right.
And so that is the true thing. And so you just got to salute the flag, either at home or in service. And
That's
so,
right. Hey, Colonel, let me just say this real quick. The first time I flew on an airplane was when I went to boot camp.
mhm,
I had never flown on an airplane. So to your point, I was the only one to leave my family and go into the military. And that's hard for a young man who has never been out of his community to think about going to a foreign place and being told what to do. But many of us have done it. And I gotta say this too. Many young women have done it. And we've got
mhm,
to give credit to our men and women who have
yes, yes,
served, because mothers, man, they got double duty. And when they're serving, they're going through a lot being away from their children. And I
yes.
know dads, we have to play the role that we play. But when mom has to go to duty and be away from her children, she's
Mhm,
making a triple sacrifice. So I want to thank all the ladies who serve our country as well.
yes, yes. And another benefit is you talk about leaving Portsmouth for the first time, and that's all across the country. But that travel piece is seeing the world outside of your community, and then getting exposed to people of all race, colors, and gender across the country, just not in boot camp, but in your duty stations. And as you get ready to transfer to place to place to place, that is a new experience. And that educational piece of meeting people, experiences, and new lands and countries and things like that, it's worth its money in gold for the experiences that you have, especially for your kids that grow up and that travel with you. And I would say the other two is like the military is like the salad bowl of America.
Yeah.
You got all the lettuce and you got the carrots, you got whatever you put in your salads. All of it's all tossed up in there. And then for the first time, a lot of folks are tossing the same salad bowl for the first time.
Yeah.
And it makes you say, hey, I got to live. I got to come out there. I want to be the most tasty piece of it. When my time, when the fork comes in, it's time to be eaten or whatever. I want to be the tastiest piece of this salad bowl. So I got to be in here with the rest of the salad mixings, and we all in here together.
That's right.
And so that is it. And you're talking about all together, especially when it's time to go to war, because a bullet has no name.
No.
It don't. When it is shot on the other end of that rifle or that IED goes up, it don't have no name. It doesn't say I'm only gonna kill black folks, white folks, Chinese, or whatever. It blows up whoever. And then so but when you have that team, you're looking out for that IED, or you got your brother in arm or sister in arm that's a sniper that is a sniper patrol that's sitting on that top of that building that's looking out to take out the bad guys before you get yours. So it's part of that team that we don't talk about other than when
Colonel, since you mentioned war, another question for you guys. I think both of you all served during conflicts or whatever where soldiers and sailors had to be deployed. Mm-hmm. So now, soldiers and sailors in there now, I guess being deployed now would look a lot different from the way it was when you all were in. What do you think they would face now, especially with the new administration? We don't know what he's going to do. It seems like he wants to use the military on his own people, but that's another story. But, what would the military look like now as far as soldiers and sailors being deployed? A little different from when you all were serving. Or is it?
Well, from a naval standpoint, when you get deployed and you're on a boat or whatever, or you're in a medical unit like I was, it's pretty much going to be the same type of situation. I know there's a lot more technology. There may be new tools to war, but at the end of the day, the mission and how you deploy and move people are probably going to be the same. In the Navy, because I was I was a corpsman, and so when the troops deployed, you had to deploy a field hospital in order to service them in whatever theater they were in. So that, to me, operationally is probably still the same. We have the hospital ships in the United States Navy, the Comfort, and I forget the name of the other ship, but in any event, they deploy as well to those hotspots. So much the same. I don't think operationally deployments change that much. Maybe the methodology and how we do it, but I doubt that they change very much. What say you, Colonel?
I think it all depends on like you say, operationally and what kind of war we're going to fight. I don't think that we'll have like another Iraqi war where we're gone in there, or another Afghanistan in the next 4 years. I think we'll be in this piece to where we'll probably, my own opinion is, shrink from the world stage and give a lot of stuff way back to whatever Russia tells the new president to do, then that's what we're going to do. So unless you're like when it's SEAL teams, they'll always deploy and they'd be doing missions that we can't talk about in Africa and knocking out whatever, looking for ISIS or whatever in Africa or some other countries and stuff like that. But I don't think we'll get into full scale, big time wars like we did in the past but we will shrink from the world stage. And if Putin wants Europe, he'll get Europe without us lifting the dime, because unless they say I'm going to blow up a Trump hotel over there, then we ain't going nowhere. So
You know, a lot of people feel that even though we're not there physically, that supporting financially countries like Israel and you know is act of war, and that's why you get the protests like you get. So I mean, what do you say about that? I mean, that's why I asked that about the change. You know, we might not be there physically, but what does it say about us as far as the financial support that we're giving these different countries for a good cause? You know, and many people think, but a lot of people feel like that's an act of war. You know, even though it's not declared or we say we're not involved. But if we send in tanks and plenty of money, you know, is that the way we're going to fight wars now?
Well, I think, you know, at least in my estimation, having paid attention to that, you know, at the end of the day, America is the leader of the free world. And we are the democracy of the free world. And so what that means is when our allies and folks get under attack, we have an agreement that we are to send support. And that support could be military, it could be financial, it could actually be real people that we send. But that's the nature of the landscape of the global situation. To me, we have these organizations which are needed because we don't want to go it alone. And we want to make sure that the bad guys, because there are bad guys in the world, we want to make sure that the bad guys are kept at bay. So there's always, in my mind, going to be a commitment at some level, because we can't be everywhere in the world. But at the same time, we have to ensure that this world is operating in a peaceful manner. Because remember, when there's war, all other things are disrupted. Commerce, trade, everything is disrupted as a result of war. So we want to make sure that we are the leader in that. And that requires us sometime to make those choices to support other countries at their time of need.
And I echo that with what you just said. And you can look at, when we talk about allies, when 9/11 happened, NATO kicked in and they instituted Article 5, that when one is attacked, that means all of them attack. So you had the entire European NATO come to our rescue and helped us fight in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And they did it willingly because they had the they had the paper saying, you're part of the organization. We're coming as our brethren. We're coming to fight side by side with you. So the other piece too, when you look at, for those that looked at Ukraine in the battle when they were attacked by Russia, the money that we have spent with giving Ukraine weapons is pennies on the dollars for pennies on the dollar for the good for Ukraine to actually fight the Russians. But I always said, the more Russians they kill, that's more Russians that we don't have to kill later on, because they've been against us and they're against our society and are against our way of life. And then so why not let spend pennies on a dollar, let them fight this out? And that's a move for the Biden administration. Probably the only move that he didn't do. We've been too reticent to let him use our weapons inside of Russia, and use it only in defensive. They need to have the offensive piece. And his war would have been over by now if the Republicans, when they took over the House this time, delayed any monies and weapons going over there for almost a year and a half. And they were getting ready to do their push them out of the Ukraine, but the Russians had the mobilizations, and during this time they regrouped and took a lot of their land back because of the Republican Party delaying the money. And now we have a president that doesn't want to, because he has an old grudge about the first impeachment. He's ready to give Ukraine up to his Russian buddy over there, Putin. So yes, I believe in supplying our allies with what they need and let them fight that out, because I did not lose not one American in that war or that conflict, not one. So it's pennies on a dollar. It's better spent over there. Plus, it's an economic piece if you really look at it, because where are those weapons made? Right here in the USA. Where those bombs and missiles and bullets are made? Right here in the USA. So we don't do it, then those folks are going to be unemployed. That's part of the industrial complex, war industrial complex. But it's all about big money when you look at it in the grander scheme. Did I answer your question, or did we answer your question, Slim?
Yeah. And as you talk about the president and commander-in-chief elect coming in, I think, Colonel, you talked about this before, and we saw several generals come up during the election period and talk about, some of the crazy things that were said or done by the former president and president-elect now. What is the rule? You make an oath, the sailors and soldiers make an oath to their allegiance to the country and the commander-in-chief. What are the rules, that follow when a move is being made by the commander-in-chief does not fall in line with your moral responsibility to the country as a military soldier?
Well, first of all, for me, part of that oath is that you sign up to defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's where it is for me. Enemies can be domestic. Enemies can be leaders if they so choose. And so when you sign up, we all in military take that oath to defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's where the rubber meets the road. If your conduct is detrimental to the safety and security of our country, then you need to be held accountable. And whatever means that is, it should happen. I'm not sure what's happening in our country right now. To what you just said, all those general officers and other military leaders came forward and said, hey, look, I don't know about this guy from a leadership standpoint. I just believe this. Now is the time that we all must be vigilant. To Colonel's point, we've got to pay attention, and absolutely we have to hold this leader accountable for all of the decisions. And if we do that, when we do that, we will ensure that the integrity of our country is here. Make no mistake about it. We ain't going back. Nobody's going back. We going forward. And whatever that will take is whatever will have to be done in my mind.
Yes. You're talking about being back, but it's this new president-elect and his accolades want us to go back. And that's why we're going to have to stay vigilant and push back and actually be part of the loyal opposition to the policies that they want to bring us back to as far as the 1940s, I believe. And then so I believe that when he took the oath the first time, that's probably the first time he ever heard of it or rehearsed it. And the next time he'll take this oath, and then hopefully he doesn't burst in flames like in the biblical thing, and or swallow his tongue when he says that, and which would be real funny. Because I believe he doesn't really believe in the oath itself, because his actions itself is antithetical to what his actions are, to the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, as you say, foreign and domestic. And we have more enemies domestically than we have foreign.
Yeah.
Military can take care of all. They could take care of Russia, China, North Korea, and all of them. Could wipe them out. But our domestic enemies are stronger than our foreign enemies are today, my opinion. And I have that same opinion with especially a lot of the generals that spoke out. Did you get your question answered there for you, Slim?
Yes, you did. Every time, both of you.
Mm-hmm.
And this next question is concerning Vietnam vets. And I have a lot of friends. I was born during that era where a lot of guys from our communities and everything were drafted and went straight to Vietnam. And some came back, and a lot didn't. And and when they came back, they didn't get the fair treatment because most people thought the war was unfair. They took it out on those soldiers that had no choice. Do you think those soldiers are getting their just due now? Because some of the guys from my community, we get together, and Mayor, you've seen us down at Roger Brown's, and those guys, and I'm the only one that's not military, but sitting there and hearing those stories that they tell when they can talk about it, especially the ones that were in the jungle, and then seeing that they're still fighting for all what's due to them as far as medical benefits and everything like that. And I think, Mayor, you mentioned earlier about how many things are available now. But these guys had to struggle to get what's wounded and mentally incapacitated in some cases, and had to struggle just to get what's due to them. And a lot of these guys are in their 70s and 80s now, just getting what they're due. How do you feel? I mean, do you really feel like they're getting their due now, or how unfair was that for them to have to go through that, especially most of them being drafted and not having a choice? And were we fair to them?
Well, first of all, from my understanding of the historical context, no, we weren't fair to them. And we as a country, unfortunately, have to live with that and deal with it. War is hell, man. And, I don't know what the answer to that is. But what I do know is those who have served, and I've seen state legislation. In fact, we had something on the ballot this time around that was on the referendum for giving benefits, right, to those individuals who may be killed, not necessarily in the theater, but in the line of duty, serving. My point is simply this. We should do, as not only a locality and a state and a nation, everything that is within our power to honor what those people stood for. And they should get their benefits. And I'm not opposed. Certainly at the local level, we don't necessarily make that kind of legislation, but I would be in support of those kinds of things from the state level and the federal level. We've got to honor our veterans, and we can't go back. I always tell people, I get it. We can't go back, but if it's housing, if it's resources they need today, dadgummit, we ought to provide that. And we ought to provide it to a level that would show them the respect and honor that they gave to their country. Because at the end of the day, they didn't necessarily always sign up to go. I went in the volunteer military, but some of these folks were called to that order, and they served valiantly. So I don't disagree with anything that those men and women deserve. They should have an opportunity to have provided to them.
Yes. And I echo the same thing. And I believe that we know we don't do enough for our veterans. And we've sort of only did lip service to help these same veterans, especially back in the Vietnam War. But I'll fast forward for all veterans now that have retired, and also those who are just haven't retired from 20 years or plus, but those are collecting disability dollars. I think that our politicians in Washington do a disservice to veterans across the country every year. So, and I'll use you for an example, Shannon. So your retirement benefit, it goes up by what they call the CPI every year. They have a different one, so you get a lesser rate than the cost of living. Versus to your active duty folks will get, if you were still on active duty and say you were out 10 years, your retirement check has shrunk according to because at the time has shrunk to where a lot of veterans that retired even 20 years ago, they're living from mouth to hand. Why not change the law to say whatever the active duty piece or folks got for a pay raise, do that across the board, so that retired veteran does not outrun his money because he lived 20, 30 years past that. And now I've had friends that that retired majors or colonels that way back then, they're living just above the poverty line because the money, because of the cost of living, shrunk over time.
Yeah.
So to change that, the people in Washington, in both administrations, in an effort to balance, well, not even balance it, but to keep the money down, have forgotten them. But they give lip service that we're trying to help our veterans. Yeah. What do you think about that kind of proposal?
I like.
We could change it. If
I can tell you 100%, I think it's fair and equitable. I think that look, we spend a lot of money on things that we probably shouldn't have. Yeah. And this is an important component. So that's what you're just talking about equity, man. You're talking about giving folks, not giving them something they didn't earn or deserve. You're making them in an equitable situation. Costs have gone up significantly. And the dollar that bought something 30 years ago doesn't buy the same thing today. So we've got to make sure that we're indexing these benefits to at least keep up with the inflationary pressures that they're going to be seeing. Because I can tell you there's a lot of folks out there, retired veterans and others, who are going to be in need of some assistance in that way very shortly right now.
Yes, and with that, I think they have Facebook users just talked about vets need more help with mental health awareness, dealing with PTSD and suicide prevention. But all that can be tied into that economic piece. Yes, and one, you talk about the PTSD and mental health. There aren't enough providers out here anyway to do that. And then so I see that we're having. I've been down to the vet center right across from the City Hall. Nice center, but they don't have any providers. They don't have any providers, and we're building them up. There's one in Chesapeake Square that's going to be coming up this fall. No, it's going to have no. It's going to they'll have some talking point, give you some literature. But there's going to be one or two providers and maybe a pharmacy there, but not enough providers. And then so but I understand why they do that, because one, if I build a building, I get the cost of, I create a job and I keep the money flowing, but it's not doing anything for our vets in the grand scheme of things. So I need providers out there. And so that's a piece that has to be fixed also. And then if I improve these, the economic situation with a lot of the vets, then maybe I'll have less of the mental health issues, or they'll have money to also go to the outside to get some of this help. And so it all evolves around economics and what do we want to pay for. And right now, we don't want to pay for it. Bottom line, we don't want to pay for it. But we can burn money up in everything else, because we could take just one or two of the B-2 bombers and just one or two of them and fund that pay raise that we just talked about. And those veterans out there, if they heard that, they would say, yeah, that's simple. That is simple. But our politicians would be, oh, you can't do that because one, that B-2 bomber is built in my district.
Yeah.
Yeah. Versus spreading it around to help out tens of thousands of veterans.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a reality.
Just wanted to say, I think we as citizens should be more aware of our role, of what we can do, especially when we elect our officials to represent us, to make sure that we bring up those questions about our veterans. You know, I think the city of Portsmouth does a good job of recognizing the veterans, and you know, especially when they come down before city council, if it's somebody that's a veteran or something like that, if he has on the gear or something like that, or you just know, you know, you recognize it. So I think it just needs to be more done locally. Some people leave it all to the national or the government to do things, but it's a lot of things we can do locally to make sure we show our appreciation for our veterans and the families. That's why I'm glad that the question was on the ballot, because the whole family sacrifices when you have someone serving in the military. And I think that they'll do whatever is due to them should come to them, you know, when that person is no longer there. It shouldn't just end when he ends. It should continue for that family.
Okay. You know, James, that's so true. And I, you know, just as an anecdote to that, you know, today we will be having our veterans ceremony at the foot of High Street at 11 o'clock this morning. And we'll start certainly on time, but it's important to your point. And we as a community, we are a military community here in Portsmouth. We have many assets, the Naval Hospital, the shipyard, we're a Coast Guard city. Our community is military, and we as a community embrace that. And I will make this statement as the mayor. If there's anyone out there who has ideas on something that we can do that is more supportive in some of the things we just discussed, we have a military affairs committee here in the city of Portsmouth. Bring those ideas to the military affairs committee, and so we can begin to work on those things that impact our veterans right here in the city of Portsmouth.
Mayor, is that a board? Is that an appointed board or commission?
Yes, it is.
Military affairs?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the military affairs committee. You also have the American Legion, DAV, Disability Association for Veterans, and the MOAA, and those type of organizations. Those proposals that we talked about this morning should be brought up by organizations that represents tens of thousands of veterans in those, and they can bring it to Washington at the state, you know, at the local, you know, they can start at the local to the state to the national and bring them up to that. And I'll make one last point here is that we talked about earlier about the VA disability. A lot of our compadres don't know that when the veteran that is getting disability reimbursements passes, that money stops. Then that family is just out of luck of that tax-free benefit there. Why is that?
That shouldn't be.
And it shouldn't be like that.
No.
It shouldn't be like that. And then so legislation could be taken to change that. And it could be easy. And the cost would be hardly nothing. But that's that lip service piece. Yes, I'll give you the disability piece. But when that veteran who is already and a lot of times in bad shape is not going to have the longer life period. But when that leaves, that whole family or the spouse that is left behind is out of luck.
That's true. Yeah.
And that's when you see them losing their houses or whatever, going down the toilet bowl of society. So that's just another point we got there. And I know this is 8 o'clock hour, and I could go on and talk about these kind of issues forever, but there we go. But saying that, Mayor Glover, thanks for coming on once again.
Thank you guys, man. And it's always a pleasure. Looking forward to engaging throughout the next term and really moving our city forward. I want to thank you guys again for all the work that you do to inform the citizens here in the city of Portsmouth. And most of all, thank you to all of our veterans for your service to our community, our state, and our country.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. And remember, if you're watching live or you watch later, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share the show with your friends and family and foes. Take care, and we'll see you next time.